It's that time of year. I made pies. I'll show you how I did it. I made these pies about 2 years ago when I was first designing Sue's Diner, my first Blender short. And if you're interested, you can find it right here on the channel. For a first attempt, I thought they were pretty good, but now I know I could do better, so I reopened the old blend files to see what I could improve. All of these renders share shaders for the table, the bowl, and the crusts. All three of those weren't the focus of the project, so I felt they looked good enough to keep them as is. The tabletop is a simple, seamless texture with roughness, specular, and tiny displacement. The bowls are just brown. In hindsight, I should have at least added a roughness map with fingerprints or scratches, but I just didn't, and now I kind of regret it. But the focus are the pies, so let's look at the apple pie I created and how I made it. The crust is basically just a torus with some displacement. There's 3 noise texture driving its color, and 1 driving the displacement. The difference between the original pie I made and this one is that Blender added a coat feature to the principled BSDF. Adding this produces that shiny, freshly baked appearance we all like. The apple pie's filling shader is completely procedural as well. 2 Voronoi textures and 1 noise are blended for the color, and 1 noise for the displacement. The apple pie weave began as simple planes with loop cuts and just edited into the pattern that I liked. There's a solidify modifier to simplify the geometry, and it's subdivided to give it the necessary displacement depth. I think the apple pie went through the fewest changes from the original, and I'm quite happy with the result. But of all the pies, I think I'm probably happiest with the pumpkin pie transformation. The original pie had some good color and it looked yummy enough, but it just lacked something real, physical. I replaced that slick, smooth pumpkin pie that we often see with a fluffier cook, and I think it looks perfect. There's 2 noise textures pushed through color ramps for the base color, and 2 for bump with a slight distortion to produce those swirls. I think most of the added realism comes from the displacement maps though. One addition I spent a bit of time on was mixing the base color with a wave texture set to rings. It's scaled so that only a single ring exists on the edge of the pie. This could have been done various ways, but this is the way I chose here. It's a little difficult to manipulate when it's at this scale, so maybe next time I'll just use a real texture. But the ring is just there to create that sunken center that happens when a pumpkin pie is baked. The pecan pie is the most complex of the 4 though. Same table, same bowl, same crust of course, but the pie itself is a mixture of 2 materials. The first controls the base color of the pie filling itself, and the second was an attempt to mix a darker, more turbulent shader only near where the pecans intersected the pie filling. It's subtle and it didn't come out exactly as I'd hoped, but only having one or the other shader just didn't make it feel right. There's that same wave texture near the edge of the pie that was used in the pumpkin pie, but it's just less visible here due to all the displacement. The original pecans were pretty bad. I didn't really know how to sculpt or procedurally create those realistic patterns, but in my opinion, the new pecans are light years better. They're high poly at 12,000 triangles though, and since the pie is 89 of them, that's about 1 million triangles. There is significant slowdown in the viewport when you have 12,000 triangle models on screen at once. The texture of them looks complicated, but it's really pretty straightforward. The base color is derived from 3 sets of nodes. The base color, the color in the creases, and the pecan's redness. Next time you see pecans, just go take a look at them. They're more red than brown. It was odd when I started to look at reference photos, but those 3 are mixed together, and there you go, you got a pecan. But to give them an extra boost, they needed to be bumpy, and they have these other, like, I'll call them veins, and they're red. Again, go look, it's kind of creepy. I could have used a real vein texture from an anatomy textbook or something, but decided to try and do it procedurally. And since they're, going to be sunken into the pie, it's you won't really notice. The bump maps are just noise texture mixed in with those veins. The pecan pie took the most time to make, but I'm happy with how it came out. And then there's the blueberry pie. The original wasn't bad. I think it was pretty good, actually. So I didn't have much to do on this one other than make the blueberry filling look just a more blueberry, I guess. That edge crust is the same as all other ones, but I did adjust its base color just a tad. It was a little too orange for my liking, and now it's slightly more yellow. But I spent most of my time on the filling. I broke the shader up into two pieces. The filling itself and the gooey mixture of the filling and the crust, and I'll show you that in a bit. There's a layer of where the blueberry goo has like soaked into the crust and turns a violet deep red. It doesn't stay blue. And it's small and you wouldn't consciously notice it, but your brain does if it's not there. And when it's off, the top of the pie just feels artificial, like it's a crust more so than part of the pie. But back to the filling, it is again just noise and Voronoi textures. It's really amazing what these two textures alone can do. The base color begins purple and red, but it's mixed with a blue tint. And a subsurface scattering of red is also there, so light begins to pierce through it. I didn't have this in the old model, and it's a slight change, but it really does make it feel real. And those blueberries are a Voronoi texture set to smooth F1. The circles that those create can be scaled as needed and then displaced, and you got blueberries. And if you want them extra big, there you go. The gooey crust is a ramped gradient texture. It definitely could be better, but I couldn't figure out how to map that gradient texture along the crust's shape. So it just gradients towards positive Z, and I mixed it with a noise texture so it isn't perfectly horizontal. I spent quite a lot of time on this. Don't regret it, but it's not as good as I wanted it to be. It needs to follow the shape of the top crust, and I just couldn't figure out how to do that. But I'm pretty stoked with how it came out. So in the end, I think it's a good idea to go back through your old stuff. Not necessarily to change them George Lucas style, but just to reflect on how far you've come with your tools and realize how you have changed, how your art changes with time. I'm not going to say I have nothing left to learn, but some of the challenges I had when I first made these, I've overcome. I can better see how to approach the modeling and shading right from the start, and that reduces the time I spend failing. And that means the process feels much smoother, which ultimately means I'll keep going. I remember fumbling around with certain things, like those original pecans, just feeling demoralized when I couldn't quite achieve what I could see in my head. Today, that happens far less, but I won't say it's gone. It's just, that's part of the fun of doing this. I'm constantly learning new things and challenging myself as I go. Thanks for watching.